now we're getting on to making of the waistband. I've done one in blue here previously to give it a test run to make sure it all works out before I show you lovely people how to do this. Okay, so I've got some stiffener that's going to go into the waistband to make it quite stiff. I'm not sure what it's called, but some kind of something really strong and tough and tight. Some kind of webbing, I'm not sure, but there we go. First of all, you need to measure it, and I'll do it in centimetres. And the width of the tape is 2.5 centimetres. So then what you do is you times that by 2. So 2 lots of 2.5 equals 5 centimetres. You then need to add your seam allowance for your waistband. And remember, you'll have a seam allowance on both sides. So a seam allowance in general, for me, I do the usual 1.5 centimetres. So 1.5 centimetres for a seam, and then you times that by 2 and you get 3 centimetres. So then you add the 3 to the 5 and you get a width of 8 centimetres. So that's how to work it out. It depends how wide your webbing is as well. It might be just be slightly wider or slightly narrower, and how wide you want your band to be. Next, you'll need to work out your length. On my band, I was wanting a bit of an overlap at the front, so that, just the example here, pretending this is coming back to the opening, I want mine to extend a bit further over with some hooks and eyes, so it can be slightly adjustable. So you need to work out your waist measurement. Now mine is 25. And you can see I've made this to 29 long because that allows for the overlap. So you more or less do the same for your measurement. That's if you want to have an adjustable waistband or one that's exactly fitted. It will obviously be a little bit less. But you do need to start out with the basic measurement of your waist. Okay, so I made a pattern piece here, so out of paper, so I know it have nice straight edges, and I used a cutting board with a grid section to help me make sure that all the sides are straight, top, bottom, left and right. You'll notice here I've left a bit of an edge around by a few millimetres. This is because I want to overlock the edges so it makes it nice and strong. Because it's going to be a cage, it's going to have a little bit more punishment, and the weight of the rings can pull on it a bit, so I'd like this waistband to be a bit more strong and sturdy, so that's why I'm using this pink stuff I've got. It's a bit stronger than a cotton, but it's still lightweight and it's very strong, so that's what I've gone with for this. So I'm just going to go and overlock these edges, and then that should make it more or less the size I've needed after I've overlocked the edge and it's cut that excess off. Okay, I've now overlocked all the edges on my waistband with the overlocking machine, and I've just given it a press with the iron, and just double checking, which I've already done anyway, but I'll just do it for this video, that it's the 8 centimetres wide and the length is what I mentioned earlier on in the video. Okay, next fold your waistband in half and iron a crease all the way along. I'm now attaching the waistband to the edge of the skirt, what you want to do, just put this make sure it's nice and flat. I've got the inside here, you can see. So what I've done is I've lined up, sorry, I'll start at the beginning. You need to overlap one end by 1.5 centimetres. So you can see here that the net finishes here, but you want this to overlap by 1.5 centimetres to the end. So that gap there to where the net starts is 1.5 centimetre overlap, because you'll be turning that in and neating it off a bit later. So what I've done is I've just gone along and put my pins upwards because I want to be sewing, and it's just easier for the machine to go over them that way rather than putting your pins across. So just line up top edge to top edge. I'll just put this the right way so you can, the other way, so you can see it a bit better. There you go, I've turned it the right way out now. So just going all the way along, and then when you come to the other side, obviously you're going to have that overlap, so you're going to end up with a lot more coming off the end when you get back round to the side than you'll need. I think I might have added a little bit more than I needed to for this, but it doesn't matter, because it's better to have done that than not left enough. And of course you'll need your 1.5 centimetres turnover when you come to the other end, but we'll go over that in a bit. So what I need to do now is, putting this the right way, is I need to, sorry, I'm going to have to turn it the right way, my camera lady is not available. So basically I need to sew a seam, line up that edge to that edge of the waistband, and my seam is the general 1.5 centimetre seam allowance. So I'll be running a sewing line from end, right from the end all round to the other end. Okay, so I'm now going to sew my waistband on with my 1.5 centimetre seam allowance, starting at the shorter end and finishing off at the overlap end with the excess. Okay, next we're just doing a trial fit with my bum bag and my corset on to make sure that that is going to be enough, obviously allowing for the end there to be turned in and they're turned in, which we'll show you in a minute anyway. So just to make sure that that's absolutely going to fit you. Okay, so now we're putting this webbing into the band, and we're working on you've got the inside of the seam here, because that's the inside of the skirt. What we've done is we're going to shove, excuse the word, or push that webbing up as far as that stitching line where your seam was that you've just done. So push that as far in, and you don't want the webbing to go right to the end, you want it to come in 1.5 centimetres, because that will be the turn-in for the usual seam allowance, 1.5 centimetres that we always do. So it will cover it like that. So we'll just show you that properly now. Okay, now we've secured it just there with a pin just to hold that. We want to turn the end in. You can do this another way. You can turn this in first and then turn it upwards, but for this we're doing it this way apparently. So you're trying to make sure it's hidden as well as you can get. So it's nice and neat. Just put a pin there. Put another one there. So that should be more or less in line with the edge of the net opening there. Okay, what I'm going to do, because I'm not as confident as Mum, is I'm going to butt the webbing up as far as it will go, up to that sewing line, really tight. Make sure it's right up against it and secure with a pin, like so. Now obviously when you go to the seam, make sure your seams are flat. It really doesn't matter if you've accidentally sewn your seams flat that way, it doesn't matter, but I made sure mine were kept open. So again, it is quite fiddly, this. Bring it over tight. Trying to hold several things at once. Oops, slipped. Put a pin in, and it helps again if your pins are facing this way. And I'm going to do that all the way along to the other end. Okay, we've now reached the other end, and we now need to cut the webbing 1.5 centimetres in from the edge of the pink band like we did on the other end. So then that allows for the turnover at the other end as well. Okay, this is actually the second take, by the way. I won't show the first. Okay, what we're going to be doing now is we want to butt this edge up against the edge of the webbing here, so it's nice and tight, and turning it over. We will turn that edge as well. Now if you're as good as Wonderful Mum here, she can do those two actions at once. She's pretty good at it, but I'm not that confident, so what I'm going to do is just turn it the once so it's nice and tight. Make sure your edges line up. Don't put it so tight that it starts to roll over or do funny bendy roly-poly things. You want to make sure you can feel the edge of that webbing there. It's buttered right up. And you want to put your pins long ways this time. So just making sure, just pulling that tight and right over. Pin there. And you do this all the way along to the other side, making sure you can feel the very edge of the webbing just there, and it's tight and it's flat both sides. That is very important, okay? Okay, so next what we want to do is making sure that's flat. You want to turn that in to meet the edge here, like so. Just put a pin in there. It's getting a bit chunky now, so it's getting a bit more difficult. Yeah. So again, just turn that edge in, making sure you take these pins out as you go along. Might be helpful. So just roll it over, pulling it tight, because obviously you don't want any slackness here. So if you don't pull it tight enough, say if you just rolled it loose, then you're going to have some excess here. So you want to make sure that's still butted up against there. That's roll that in with your fingers to be as tight as possible, but meeting the very edge there. I've just rolled that a bit too far, so I'm just going to do that. There we go. I put a weight here, that's just for me really, just to stop that net moving because it was driving me mental. So again, you want to make sure that's tight there, that edge is rolled over enough there, you've got no slack. Put the, oh, I just caught myself, a pin there. There we go, and do that all the way along, making sure it's nice and flat on the back as well. Okay, what I'm doing now is I'm just doing like a catch stitch or a little whip stitch, whatever you like to call it, closing those two edges together down there. I've already started, and I did the same thing I did up here. I've done quite a few stitches to start with, so it's nice and strong. And you don't have to do this, but I do every now and then. Instead of just doing one, I just do an extra one every few centimetres, add a little bit of strength, because obviously you're not doing this on a machine. While I've got these pins in, I'm going to hold that tight so it doesn't move, take the pin out, and then holding it tight, taking a little bit of where you see the net, and then a little bit underneath of the band there, just barely on the edge, just doing little tiny stitches. And I use a very small needle for this, probably the smallest needle you can find. Just catch a bit of that and a little bit of the edge of the outer band and go together. And like I say, if you want to and then do an extra stitch, if you just want a bit of extra strength every now and then you just carry on like that. I'll wait. I've now completed sewing on my waistband, and when doing the same as I did at the beginning, when I get to the other end, just do some catch stitches to seal the end shut. Next I'm going to be putting on some hooks and eyes for my fastenings, but to do that I'm going to put it back on, and Mum is just going to mark where they need to go. Okay, I decided to sew an extra set of hooks and eyes on. This is because when I actually latched it on, one side kept slacking down like that, so it's just the weight of it really, because the wiring makes it quite heavy. So now I can just, pretending this is on you, sorry, it'll go the other way. So you can latch that first set onto there, and a second set of hooks and eyes will go there. Ideally I could have extra a bit more overlap on this, but never mind. Sometimes even after years of doing these things, you find out something's not worked. I wouldn't say this hasn't worked, it's just that I needed to sew on an extra row of hooks and eyes really. Second pair of hooks, at least 3 pairs of eyes. Okay, now we'll move on to the boning. I bought the steel boning from eBay. It's called Hemline Steel Boning, white plastic coated. It was £1.75 a metre from Oh So Crafty Co UK. So that's where I bought all my boning from. As I say, I used about 15.5 metres. This is the steel boning that I'm going to be using. It measures 1 centimetre wide, and I've used about 15.5 metres. So what I did is I've measured from each ring end to end, so this is starting at the top, measured with a tape measure all the way around back to the beginning. And then when we come back to the beginning, we'll need them to overlap, so not just meet at the middle, you want an overlap. So what I did is then measured to the middle, and then I added 6 centimetres each side. So that is going to be my overlap when it comes back to the very beginning. And I'll do the same on each one. I've measured each channel end to end, adding the 6 centimetre seam allowance so that they overlap. and do that for every single ring, and it should give you more or less the measurement of bones that you need for each section. I bought these little rubber end caps to go on the end of the boning. I got these off eBay as well from this shop, and they're 12mm wide because you have to give that little bit of wiggle room for the 10mm wide boning. I got them quite cheap. I bought a pack of 24 for £2.35, remembering that you need one for each side of your bone. For every ring you need two. But I thought if anything happens to some, at least I've got some spare. They seem quite flexible. So, but I think I might still need to tape them on. So they're just to go on the ends. Okay, I'm now threading my boning through the channels, and on the ends I'm putting these end caps. Sorry, I just put this down. Sorry, I couldn't do that while trying to hold the camera at the same time, so I put these little end caps on the end. I might put a bit of tape over them because they're just slightly loose, just so it holds those on. And then it's a matter of fact of adjusting them to where you need to be. I've just been putting some tape on in sections at the moment, just to try and hold it where it needs to be. All you can really do is do it by eye and make sure it looks all level all the way around. Okay, so this now completes the cage hoop skirt. So the next tutorial will be the making of the petticoat that's going to go over this.